everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my kitchen. So today's video is something I'm really excited to try out. Today I'm going to be making the King Arthur 2024 Cookie of the Year. I have made a lot of cookies over the years and I've never made a chocolate chip cookie that has this exact kind of recipe. So I am very excited to try this out. Also, because this is a very complicated chocolate chip cookie, I'm also going to compare this cookie to one of my go-to super easy, simple chocolate chip cookie recipes. So if any of this stuff sounds interesting to you, stay tuned. Alright, so we are at the stove. I'm going to put this on medium heat. So I got 2 sticks of butter, which is 16 tablespoons total. I think this is about 226 grams, it should be. Okay, I've got a second camera up here. Hopefully we'll have a second angle to work with. And we're going to brown this butter. Not wasting any butter. Okay, so the butter is now melted and I'm just stirring it a little bit. Hopefully you can see this is how it currently looks. If you've never browned butter before, it's pretty straightforward to be honest, but you can burn it if you let it go for too long. Okay, so hear it popping. That's all the water coming out of the butter. All the water coming out. See, the top has already changed a little bit, and so we'll be able to see the browned butter once it's time. You'll start seeing the browning happening at the bottom, but we're not there yet. Oh, you see the top is changing now? It's not nearly as foamy anymore. We're gonna start browning soon. Oop, look, see it's changing again? Now we're back to foaming. So I like to just, push my spatula around. Just to keep an eye, because it's starting to brown now. See, it's starting to brown. And we don't want anything to burn. It's starting to brown. Okay, running over here. Okay, we're a little crooked. Just give me a second. It's hard doing this with one person. Okay, so I'm scraping it out of here and just pouring it directly on top and scraping everything out. Getting all of the brown bits off of the bottom of the pot. Okay, and in this bowl we have brown sugar and salt. And they say to whisk together. This is the first thing, by the way, that I thought was weird. I've never had a cookie recipe that called for using hot butter directly in. It just says to whisk until combined. Brown, immediately pour, whisk vigorously to combine. It keeps getting stuck in the whisk a little bit. We're gonna head back to the stovetop to make the tangjong. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've never heard of a tangjong before. We're gonna use the same pot that we browned the butter in to make a tangjong. Hi. Editing Nicole here. I got some news for you. In typical Nicole fashion, we had some problems. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. If you are unaware, I am the only one who edits and records these videos. It's all just me here, locked away in this room. As you saw, I had 2 cameras going. When I left the stove after browning the butter, I didn't know this at the time, but I had apparently left that camera recording the empty stovetop. So when I returned to the stove to turn on to make the tangjong, it's written on the screen, I still don't know if I'm saying that right. When I returned to the stove to make that, I did not realize it at the time, but when I pushed the record button, what I actually ended up doing was turning off the camera. So all of the footage that I had making the tangjong is gone. I don't have it.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
So I will explain this next step since I don't have footage of it. The tangjong, I have later since found out, is also known as a water roux. It is often used in bread recipes. I think, again, based on my very limited research, I think it's often used in bread recipes to specifically keep the bread being fresh longer. I've made bread quite a few times in my life. I've never made one of these, like a water roux for bread. So yeah, it's not something that I'm particularly familiar with. For this recipe, it was 3 tablespoons of flour with half a cup of whole milk, and it comes together very, very quickly. If you've never made a roux before, again, they come together very, very quickly. I don't find them difficult at all. This isn't like a gumbo, so I didn't have to make it like dark or anything. I just needed to keep mixing it until it turned into like a very thick glob. And you'll see what I do with that glob next. So it says to add the tangjong into this and whisk until mostly smooth. For a second there, it didn't seem like it was gonna mix in, but it's gone in there now. Okay, let me grab the eggs now. Okay, another strange thing about this recipe is that it calls for using cold eggs. I keep my eggs out at room temperature, so I actually stuck these in the fridge. So 2 large eggs, 1 egg, and then 2nd egg. Also, it looks like the camera's a little crooked. I'm trying my best.
Trying my best here.
Both eggs were good. 2 eggs. Come on. It's almost incorporated, but I want to wash my hands so that I can put in the vanilla. I don't want to touch my vanilla with yolky hands. So it calls for using 1 tablespoon of King Arthur vanilla extract. I make my own vanilla extract, so sorry, King Arthur. Here we go. Let's do 1 tablespoon, and we whisk. Please don't fall over, camera. So we've got bread flour here. Okay, here's another weird one. It doesn't say to like put it in a little bit at a time. It just says to, you know, just dump it in. Okay. A little nervous about that. And then it says add the baking powder and baking soda. 1 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder. And then 1/4 teaspoon baking soda. Okay, get to mixing. Okay, it's a very, very, very sticky dough. So it says to stick this in the refrigerator for 10 to 15 minutes while you chop up your chocolate. In the fridge, uncovered. I'll be back. So I've got a bunch of different chocolates here. I've got some 56% chocolate. I've got 72 and 90. These are gonna be very dark, and this is gonna be like more semi-sweet. But these were all the chocolate bars that I had in the house, so we're gonna have to just work with it. I'm hoping that having the various blend of chocolates will be a delicious thing. How much did they say we needed? It says between 60 to 65. Okay, it's fine, it's fine.
Surprise, mother.
I feel like 56 to 70. I think it'll even it out. So we're just gonna, yeah, I see why they said serrated knife. Let's get a serrated knife. I don't know where my normal serrated knife is, so I'm just gonna use my cake knife. So I will admit, I've never actually made chocolate chip cookies that called for like chopping up your own chocolate. I've always used chocolate chips, but I really don't know what's the best size at all for this type of application. Honestly wondering if I have too much bitter chocolate and I should just use chocolate chips. Yeah, maybe I'll use a combination because I'm really concerned about the level of intensity. Maybe, oh, some of these are really big. Some of those are really big. Okay, hold on. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Here's how that looks. Hopefully this is okay. I'm gonna add some semi-sweet chocolate chips to this. Fold the chocolate into the dough. So the directions say to just stick this into your refrigerator for 24 to 72 hours. I really hate scooping cookies that are really, really cold. So I think what I'm actually gonna do is scoop these while they're still fairly warm and make my life a little bit easier for tomorrow. So it says 85 to 90 gram portion. I'm gonna stick these in the fridge for a couple of minutes so that they're no longer so sticky. Then I'm gonna cover them in saran wrap and then we'll be back. So I was just about to start making the second cookie for this video and I realized that I did not have any more brown sugar. I used it all for the last recipe. So I'm just gonna make some brown sugar really quick. Making brown sugar at home is actually really easy. I got in the habit of doing this during like a little bit after the panini. I found that it was really hard to find dark brown sugar where I live. Like all the stores here were having only light brown. So I honestly do not measure when I do this. I just kind of, I'm gonna empty this bag because I'm tired of this bag floating around. So like an actual way is for every 1 cup of white sugar, you want 1 tablespoon of molasses. And that will make, and 1 tablespoon to 1 cup of white sugar will give you light brown. If you want dark brown, you do 2 cups of, no sorry, you'll do 2 tablespoons of molasses to the 1 cup of white sugar. How I do this, I just pour my sugar into my stand mixer and then I just start pouring the molasses in and I stop when I feel like the color is right. Here is the molasses that I'm using. Definitely need to buy some more. Probably should turn this on. And just start pouring. So I do fully recognize that most people probably don't have molasses in their house. Other uses for molasses other than making brown sugar, you all can make some really good oatmeal cookies. Molasses cookies are really good. Some ginger snap cookies call for using molasses. It has plenty of uses in baking. I've never come across one for using it for like non-baking purposes, but I feel like a lot of really nice fall recipes call for using molasses. Okay, here is my container. And then in all of my little containers, I have a little clay disc in the lid, and it does a really good job at keeping the brown sugar nice and soft. Now we're gonna make another chocolate chip cookie recipe. This one is infinitely simpler than the last one. This one is by Sally's Baking Addiction. This is her chewy chocolate chip cookie. Some notable difference between this cookie and the last cookie is this one calls for all-purpose flour. It also calls for using cornstarch, an egg, and an egg yolk. I have made this before using bread flour and it came out perfectly fine. Like it was a nice chewy cookie. I didn't think until this moment that maybe I should have tried it with the bread flour for this, but I guess doing it as it was written and not how I, you know, change it around when I'm making it would probably be a more fair thing. In this bowl we have our flour, baking soda, cornstarch, as well as salt. I'm just gonna whisk those up. Okay. In this bowl here we have our sugars, and here we have some melted butter. The butter in here, I melted it several minutes ago and it's no longer really hot. And now we need 1 egg plus 1 egg yolk. 1 egg. Oop. And this is why I crack in a separate one. That is why.
No, don't like that.
Whenever you have chickens, your chickens always want to surprise you. Sally says 2 teaspoons vanilla. We're actually gonna measure. Usually I just glug it in there until I feel happy. But you know, well, okay, that was a little bit more. That was a messy one. Okay, so one thing I do when I do this recipe that's different from the last one, when I'm mixing this in, I do not mix this all the way before I add my chocolate chips. Okay, so I've got a little mixture of semi-sweet and dark chocolate chips. Dump them in. So I do it this way so that I don't accidentally over-mix the cookies. I feel like when you do it this way, it makes it a little bit easier because you see there's still some flour pockets, and as I'm here mixing this in, all the chocolate chips are getting nice and incorporated. So what I'm actually gonna do for these, I'm gonna once again scoop them all out. I'm actually just gonna be freezing some of these because I do not need a double batch of cookies. Hello, so we are now 48 hours after I last gave you all an update. I am very curious to see how time has treated the cookies. So I'll be honest, the same day that I made this batch of cookies, when Wayne came home, he really wanted to have a cookie. So I did bake off one of each cookies on day one. I'll put a picture here of what they look like. Something that I found for the bake time for these is the King Arthur flour version does require a much longer bake time than the Sally's Baking Addiction cookie. Just based on how the cookie baked off on that first day, I generally prefer my cookies like a little bit underdone. I do not like a super brown, crispy, crunchy cookie. Like, it's not for me personally. While the King Arthur flour cookie recipe does recommend baking for 18 minutes, I found that I like the sweet spot about 15 to 16 minutes. Alrighty, here is a close-up shot of the cookies. These here are the King Arthur flour cookies, and then these here are the Sally's Baking Addiction cookies. You can definitely see a color difference between the two cookies. So something else that I noticed is different between the cookies is the King Arthur flour cookie, despite chilling for so long, it's still it's still fairly soft, like surprisingly soft. Usually I find for cookies that have chilled for this long, like you can't really move them around too much, and like look, see how much firmer the Sally's Baking, like it's rock hard. So I did find that fairly interesting. So because the King Arthur flour cookie takes a little bit longer, I'm gonna bake these first. And I'm gonna put the Sally's back in the fridge. So here are the cookies out of the oven. As you can see, I did not do a good enough job keeping them separate, but these do make some ginormous cookies. These are some very like aesthetically pleasing cookies. Really, really pretty cookies. And because I can't help myself, I do want to also just add a little bit of flaky sea salt. This is the one I use. I got it on Amazon. Get a little flaky sea salt moment. You can kind of see the centers of the cookies that they are a little underdone in the center, but that's how I like my chocolate chip cookie. Like I like the center to be a little soft still. You can see around the edges, their cookies are definitely very set on the edges though. Here is a close-up. And let's open that up. Here is an inside shot of the cookie. All right, let's give it a little taste test. Here's a little more of the cross section. If you like a cookie that's not super sweet, I do think that this cookie isn't super sweet at all, especially since it relies on the baking bar chocolate. It's not super sweet at all, but you can also use like a milk chocolate in here too if you wanted to sweeten it up a little bit. I really like the texture. The texture on the outside, like it's very chewy on the outside and soft on the inside. I did find if you bake it more, you can get more of a chew throughout the rest of the cookie as well. All right, next up we have Sally. Here is Sally's cookie. This is a little bit warmer than the other cookie, but you can see it's still also a little underdone on the inside there. It's really less chewy than the King Arthur one. It's sweeter as well. It's sweeter than the King Arthur recipe. Yeah, but again, not a bad cookie. So I really like this cookie a lot. Hi again. I'm sure you can guess what happened if you're seeing Editing Nicole pop in again. Once again, lost footage. This time, I don't even know what happened. I honestly have no idea what happened. No clue whatsoever. You all just saw the taste test, so this part here is going to be my final thought. The big question for me is like, one, was this cookie recipe worth doing? And two, is this going to be my new go-to chocolate chip cookie recipe? I just feel like chocolate chip cookies are one of those cookies that like the perfect recipe is going to depend heavily on the person. Some people like crispy, some like chewy, some like soft, some like gooey. I like a combination of chewy and gooey together. I like that together. So I do think that this recipe was fantastic. The first time I baked it off, I did follow their baking instructions to the T, and it was a little bit too crispy / chewy for me. So that's why I chose to underbake mine. So one thing for sure, if I do make this cookie again, I highly doubt that I'm going to wait 24 to 72 hours to eat it. I honestly did not really see too big of a jump in the flavor profile or the texture, honestly, between waiting a couple of hours chill time versus waiting 2 days. So I think this cookie recipe is worth doing if you wanted to try like a new chocolate chip cookie recipe out. But I don't think it's going to be my new go-to, but I think it likely will be one of my I have saved it to do it again. As far as if it's better than the Sally's Baking Edition cookie or any other chocolate chip cookie, I'm gonna say no. I feel like at the end of the day, it's still a chocolate chip cookie, and I don't think, other than like adding different flavor profiles, I don't really think any one chocolate chip cookie is that much. I was gonna say I don't think it's any better than any other, but I think there are some chocolate chip cookie recipes that I don't like. Like, I don't like thin, crispy cookies at all. I just think when I taste this cookie, like, I'm not like, oh my god, it's so different. Like, it's not. It's a chocolate chip cookie, but it's a good chocolate chip cookie, but at the end of the day, it's still a chocolate chip cookie. It's a good cookie, but I don't think it's like the earth-shattering difference in chocolate chip cookies as I was personally hoping. So I would love to know what everyone else thought of this cookie vlog, I guess we'll call it. If you've tried this recipe, I would love to know what you think of it. If you're like me and you just make a whole lot of different recipes for the sake of doing it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So just thank you all for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologize for all of the oopsie poopsie moments. Before we end today's video, I want to give a very special shout out to my channel members, Shenanigans! Just thank you all so very much for all your love, support, just everything. Names are all on the screen right now. If you'd like to sign up for my channel memberships, I have a link for that in the description box. But as always, please do not feel pressure to sign up for channel memberships. So you like the video, comment, share, subscribe, all the things, and we are good. So everyone, hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Get high. I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.